with my favorite Krishnamurti story is Krishnamurti was a CL. Oh, you got beautiful linen suits. Sure. And I'm having trouble reconciling the fact that you're asking us to give up all these things, but you're not giving up your beautiful suits. And Krishnamurti said, "I like suits." And why it's always amused me, but why it's relevant to me is that he's a real person, and we are real people. And every so often, we're going to come in the morning, and our Kanban is going to look like this. No matter how much we worship the Kanban and think that the Kanban is going to save us all, some days our work is going to look like this. And then we're going to say, "Oh, I'm a hypocrite, I can't get things done." But what we have to realize is that there's that life doesn't treat us fairly. So we go back to the quote, and the last part of that quote, have to turn it on though. The last part of the quote there is to suffer and understand. Not just to understand, but to actually suffer and understand. So basically it's notice the pain, understand the pain, and then do a couple of things. Either figure out, okay, my whip limit's actually 5, I give up. Or I'm going to have conversations with the people who are feeding me work and make this not happen. Or I'm going to say that my whip limit is actually 1, and I know that at any given point in time, somebody's going to come along and give me 2 other things to do. But what we're doing is we're looking for what that balance is. We're looking for what is the truth of our ability to independently act. And so we like to think that we are all rational creatures and we make rational decisions and we're fairly much in control of our own actions. Nah, doesn't really work that way. I realize also that we are part of a system, part of several systems, and those systems push work into our beautiful pull system. So I'm going to stop there. Are there any other questions? Anybody else like to poke me? Yes? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The moment we get into a team, then there is a team Kanban we have to take into account, and automatically increases.
Mm-hmm.
But that scenario, we have to take into account that how much capability of individuals are, and then that accordingly we have to come to the whip limit of the team. Right.
So yes, yes and yes, and yes and yes and no, or no and yes and yes. So the personal in personal Kanban means objects of personal value. So if you have teams of 6 or 7 people, you can still set up a board that has items of personal value flowing through them. The other methods of Kanban that are out there are very much focused on the backlog and the exact work that is supposed to be flowing through the system, which means that you pay a lot of attention to your planned work, but not your unplanned work. And so one of the things with personal Kanban, whether it has 25 people using it and 1 million columns, is we want to make sure that everyone's work in process is somehow represented on the board. And that might make the board very, very busy and very dirty. But what happens is we will say, aha, I have these 3 things that I'm supposed to be doing for my project. And then I'm not talking about the fact that I'm planning a conference and working on things with 2 other people and going to do some meetings and working on the new HR plan and doing some marketing stuff and doing 3rd-tier support and blah, 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 blah. So with that company that had the 15 different Kanban boards, when we first went in and visited them, they were all working on 5 different projects each. and and they were doing third-tier support, and they were doing special favors, and their Kanban boards for their projects all looked perfect. But they were all freakishly overworked and nothing was getting done. And so I told them, you shouldn't do that. You should work on one project at a time. He said, oh, we couldn't possibly just work on one project at a time. So I said, okay, fine. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of paper down here, and I want everybody to just put Post-it notes for the stuff that they're doing on their own projects or their other projects. And then it basically looked like a skirt. It was just like this weave of Post-it notes, solid, thick Post-it notes. And it looked so stupid that everybody was like, okay, you know what? We have to limit our work in process. So the personal and personal Kanban is I want the value to be of value to the customer, and I want the work that's flowing through it to be of value to the team. So when something's realized, this is customer value. Customer value happens here. Customer value is conceived of here, created here. This is where we're important. This is where the customer is important. All right? And I watch on the microphone just getting closer and closer and closer. So, are you set? Should I close up or? Oh, still have one more? Okay. Okay. Yep.
Hi Jim, good morning. I'm
Morning.
Kannan. I work for a company called Aris Global. I just have a question about this personal Kanban.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a brilliant thing and it makes perfect sense as far as the health of the individual is concerned. However, there are situations when the rest of the team might be opposed to the idea of visualizing everything. There could be several biases. Perhaps they just don't want to share how much of bandwidth is free, available to take up more work. Or it could be manager wants to favor a particular team member and based on perceptions or something. So in such a situation, would this still, for an individual it makes sense. But then, no, I'm a fan of this, but then can I put it in my team and say that, look, this is how I'm going to work. I don't know how others are going to work in this team.
So there may be a fear that if you show that you have capacity, people will try and fill it up. When I asked who here needed more work, nobody raised their hands. And it wasn't because the people here are lazy, it's because we're all pretty full. So the likelihood of us having not enough work and broadcasting that is really, really low. But the fear is real. The fear is absolutely real. So what we've noticed is that teams, and David Anderson has reported this back when people have come to his classes, said, how did you start, why are you here for the Kanban method classes? And they would say, well, a couple people on our team started doing personal Kanban, and then the rest of the team noticed that it was working for them. And then the team started doing personal Kanban, and now we want to have more metrics and things like that, so we want to hear your ideas. So what we find is that this tends to be extremely viral. People watch other people mapping out their work, and they're like, oh, when I look at that, when I look at your board, I understand what you're doing. And then they start to think, do I understand what I'm doing? And then they say no. And some happy accidents will happen. So like, this is Tony Ann's board, and she finishes this ticket, and then she pulls this ticket in, and I see that she's pulled that ticket in because it's visible, right? And I did something like that yesterday, and I go in and I say, hey, you know what, yesterday I did something like this. If you Google these 3 things, you're going to get a lot of information, and it'll cut your work time by about 4 hours. And that's what we do as people. We help each other. If we didn't, we wouldn't be sitting here. So the key skill of human beings is that we actually are collaborative. We're afraid that we're not, but naturally we are. And it's because these things are reflex actions. But I could not help Tony Ann if I could not see it. One of the other things, this is really weird. This is the thing that I think still we're very confused about. A few years ago, we were in Scotland. And Scottish people aren't known for being terrifically huggy. And they were running into a problem where they were saying, we have a lot of defects that are escaping. We have tons of escape defects, and we can't figure out how to spot them. And I say, well, is your team happy? He says, no, our team's really upset. They were Scottish, so they said something else, but it equated to really upset. And so we said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you use something that is called subjective well-being, which is basically if I ask you how you are, you're either going to tell me the truth or you're going to lie to me, but you're not going to be wrong, okay? So you can make the choice to lie to me if you want, but usually you know how you're feeling. And so we said, when you're done with a task, put a subjective well-being marker on the task about how you're feeling. And as a manager, I know if I walk in to the room and I see a bunch of these are leading indicators of escape defects. Because coders aren't unhappy because of sport or politics. They're unhappy because they turned in bad product and they know it. And usually, for some reason or another, there's a systemic reason why. There's a bad test environment, there was bad communication, poorly written spec, poorly written user stories. But we want more of these. And so what we'll notice is that initially you'll get a bunch of these and you'll start to fix them. And then the team will start to reach a point where they're like, we don't ever want to turn in another one of these. So if they start feeling uneasy, they're going to ask themselves, why do I feel uneasy? And they're going to refactor until they feel like this. And that's the amount of time it really took to complete this. So this is making your sprint goals. This is actually finishing the work. So in Agile, for years we've been going, what's the definition of done? The definition of done is that this ticket goes over here and it doesn't come back. That's it. It's the only definition of done that there is.
Okay.
End soapbox.
Well, I know its time is up, so thanks, Jim. I have to stop you here.
Okay.
That's okay. So thank you very much. I hope you guys had a good session. So let's give a big round of applause. So I'm going to request Tony Ann to also come here for a minute. So Tony, do you want to step up here? Yeah. They will be here over the weekend, I think. Are you guys here Sunday? So hopefully they were looking for some tips of what they may want to do in Bangalore. So if you have any ideas, please share with them. So otherwise, I would like to thank them. So thank you very much for being here.
We want to eat
and,
lots of food.
They like food, by the way, is what I found. So from us, a small, join with Lance. So from us, a small token of thanks for you. So Arindam, do you want to give it? Okay, so that's awesome. So maybe you can give them food tips. Thank you very much. You guys have been awesome. Yeah. Okay, so they'll be here for any of your questions. So we're going to take a quick break. But before that, I want to point out Arnab there, who looks sort of just my thing, but different color T-shirt. He's going to be the facilitator for track 1. Okay, so he'll be here. Where is Soma? Soma, where is she? Soma is on that side. So Soma is back there. She's going to be your facilitator for track 2. So any impediments you have, speakers or anything, just first let them know. They'll be able to help you. When you come back, this will be closed, okay? Madhavi, who is here somewhere, she's out, is it? Okay, so we'll introduce the mother. So this is track 1, track 2. 15-minute break. Let's go, come back, and start our sessions again.
Having said that, not all these techniques might work in all the all the places for all your teams, right? So this is where we discuss. Okay, these are the techniques. These are some of the ways how you can achieve it. What works for you, you can probably pick it up and then try it out with your teams. So my topic is being lean and Kaizen. As you can see, I got to help us all lead a lean lifestyle, pretty much. So the main topic is being lean. We all know, right? We all do lean. We think we are doing lean, right? Many of us be doing agile. We are doing agile. Someone tells, hey, you know what? This is a great way to do it. Let's do it. Many of the teams, hey, we are past part of the transformation journey. We are going through this agile transformation or lean transformation. We want to be a lean shop. We are doing all these things. But at the end of the day, what really works, and I'm sure I'll probably, this is a very interactive session, guys. I'll be asking, quick show of hands, and I'll be asking your feedback very constantly. We all have realized, I'm pretty sure, that being lean is what actually takes us through the long run, right? It helps us reach the destination, isn't it? And I'm sure many of us can relate to it. Like, we all start off well, but the end well happens only if it's inculcated within us. We lead that lifestyle. We lead that lifestyle throughout the journey. Only then it helps us, reach the destination. So, having said that, how many of you are here actually pure lean shops, like, who are wanting to move towards lean or doing, being a lean shop? Okay, just a couple of, okay, I see more hands raising. How many of you are on the agile transformation journey? Okay, cool, excellent, thanks so much. So that just gives me a feeling. So, as any organization or any enterprise who wants to move to this transformation journey, am I right in saying that's pretty much the vision? Everyone wants, that's the vision, which encourages us or, which tells us, hey, you know what, I like the vision. And that's the reason why I want to, board this journey. I want to take this journey. Am I right? So what does it say? Maximize customer value with minimizing waste. So the first part is where the agile, principles is all about maximizing customer value. We all know that, I'm sure, because most of us are already in the undertaking the transformation journey. Customer is the king. The value, what we generate, is it what the customer wanted? But then, as you move towards becoming a lean shop also, then we bring in this extra additional component of, okay, I'm delivering value, but also how can I minimize waste? And you'll soon find out, by doing that, that's the best way to help us achieve continuous improvement. Right? The organizations who want to go to the lean shop, want to become a lean shop, that's pretty much the vision. So having said that, we all know that we need to adapt, so that's the whole, the change management. How does it start out? You start thinking, okay, what are the things we need to do? Okay, I understand, okay, there's something called agile. We need to be agile. And then probably, hey, let's start becoming lean as well. Now we bring in the other lean concepts which helps us get there. Right? That's pretty much how the journey starts. So having said that, this is a typical representation of an enterprise. Right? We have these various departments there. And as part of the lean journey, what happens? You usually start off with some agile principles. Am I right? So what happens is usually you start off with some agile principles. You start incorporating some agile principles within these two divisions usually, the project management and the software development. Scrum, which is very popular amongst the software industry. You start, okay, as part of this whole journey, let's start off implementing some agile principles. And in software industry, we all know that Scrum is a very popular methodology what we use. So where does it start? It usually starts off with the software development and the project management divisions. And then, once you achieve a certain level of maturity, the transformation journey has started, and then we can start thinking about lean. Because that's the key difference between agile and lean. Where agile is usually limited or is quite popular in these two departments, with the software development and the project management. And then you start incorporating the lean philosophy or the lean principles, and that in a way kind of encompasses the whole enterprise.
These guys have to finish one story, so that moves down here, and they pick up another new feature to work on. What happens is now we start seeing that developers are only half full, right? And at this point, the manager gets angry. Hey, my guys are half idle. They are only 50% done. I need more stories for them. And so he goes to the POs and says, hey, you guys are too slow. Start feeding in more stories. Make it faster. We are still releasing only one feature a week. So when the executives are not happy about releasing one feature a week, they say, hey, we need to make it two. And so everyone starts getting into action. So the development manager says, hey, you got to work faster. And the product owner's manager says, like, hey, you got to work faster. And so they say, okay, fine, we're not really ready with the story, but yeah, we work on it. We'll get down to clarifying it later. And say, okay, let's pick up these two because we need to work faster. Right? So now the developers have kind of a half-baked story there and a good story. And over time, what we are going to see is that, hey, systems test over here is getting a bigger and bigger backlog. They are like bottleneck big time. You can see the number of stickies over here. These guys are starving for work. And these guys, because they are starving for work, they are doing a half-day job and pushing stuff there because otherwise someone can come and shout at us. Right? So the quality of story starts reducing. So what we're seeing here is kind of an effect where we're trying to push on all ends of the system and it's making the system worse. At the end of all this, we're still going to release only one feature a week. Nothing has changed. Only thing that has changed is big bottleneck here. These guys are like a seriously harassed lot. Meantime, these guys are also harassed because they are like putting out poor quality stories in the system to feed these guys. And things are actually really bad in the system. Now over here we have a Kanban for the whole system. So we can easily see this. We can see that there's a starvation here, there's a bottleneck there. But in most organizations, there's no Kanban for this. Something like this keeps happening all the time, but people don't know it. They're just looking at the developer alone and saying, hey, push stories as fast as possible. And we're not looking at the whole system, at bottleneck somewhere else. And because we're not visualizing it, we don't even realize that this kind of system is happening. Right, so what's the solution to this? What do you think is the solution to this? Yeah, make it visible, absolutely.
And see that for attaining that, what are the challenges we have in the organization.
Yeah. So over here, right, it's only worth focusing on removing the bottleneck. If we go back to our traffic signal, this is a lot worse situation. Keeping this idle actually makes the traffic flow better. And over here, if we tell the developers, okay, you just do one post-it a week. I know you can do two, but you just do one. Right? Don't do two. What happens there? Then we have throughout the entire system, one post-it will flow through. We'll have these guys finishing one a week, these guys feeding in one a week, these guys preparing one a week, ready, and the whole system is at a steady state of flow. Right? The only thing is these guys are idle for 50% of the time. Do you think that's a better situation than what we have now? Would you?
Releasing something and releasing it with quality, releasing something that is happening.
Okay, so you're releasing something with quality. Okay, so that's one
You're avoiding
good
things
point.
that come back from system.
There's also a good possibility that from test it may go back because things are not really done properly. What else?
There's also another way of looking at it, right? When this development is 50% idle, they could take over something from the system
Yeah.
test, and so this so is still balance the resources.
Yeah, so instead of the development doing only two stories, maybe they could help out somewhere else, right? That's a great point. What else? Yeah, so you mean the development team?
No, the
Or the
system
system test team? Okay, yeah.
So we don't innovation.
Innovation, yeah.
So they can address the technical debt problem.
Technical debt. So we're seeing so many things, right? Innovation, can they help out with system test, technical debt, better quality stories. So what we have here is, if we're doing one story at a time, we've actually created slack in one part of the system. Remember at the beginning we said, hey, there's no time to do continuous improvement, right? But now there is. Right now, development has 50% time to do continuous improvement, and it's not going to affect the outcome at all. It's not if the developers take their 50% time and use it and say, okay, I'll help here, or I'll do innovation, or I'll do technical debt reduction. All those actions are not going to impact the final delivery. We're still going to do one story a week. Right? So we have in the system now a place where there's a slack which can be utilized for improving the system without making any impact on the release. Right? So I'll give an example. Like this example actually comes from one of the previous companies that I worked in. And we had the situation where the development team, the team I was working in, was very agile. And system test used to take a long time because it was embedded systems and a lot of things had to be done manually. We didn't have a lot of automated frameworks. And the development team used to do a lot of stories and keep pushing it, but there'd be a big bottleneck here in system test. And finally, stuff which actually goes to the customer, which is what the organization really cares about, was okay, it wasn't all that great. It was good, better than before, but there was a big bottleneck here. So after some time, when we actually set up the Kanban for the entire stream, like this, till then we were only looking at this. Hey, we are a Scrum team, this is our Scrum board, which has implementation, unit testing, whatever, and done. That's just our view. And we used to just try to improvise that. But when we started looking at the entire system test, we started thinking, hey, there's a bottleneck here. The more we are doing, we're just creating trouble for people down here. So we kind of convinced our manager and said, for the next 3 sprints, we'll do just 50% of the stories. In the remaining 50%, we'll develop a framework where we can automate some of these tests.
Acceptance from the team, the whole teamwork concept. Make them realize that. I'll just take an example at this point. So this is just a daily stand-up example. So I was working with one of these teams who are quite hesitant. I'll use the word hesitant for the change. So I just wanted to get a feel. So the manager calls me and like, hey, Gautam, can you help this team? I don't think they're really, they don't understand the whole principle. So I just started being an observer. We all as coaches, we normally use the whole, we are like a fly in the wall, right? The first few, the meetings. So I just went there, observed their stand-up meeting. I realized that in this organization, they use Rally as a tool because it's a very distributed team, and so they have Rally as a tool to help with this whole management. So, but they have this tool. They have this wonderful setup of they have big LED screens. They have this big room, team rooms. But then everyone was just like the daily stand-up was like, everyone is just standing around. They have laptops in front of them. They're not using it. Everyone is like the usual. What did I do? What am I planning to do? FNA implements. That's it. 10 minutes, done. They all walk out of the room. Explain to them. Not only that, I also explain to them how to utilize the stand-up time to just quickly up, because everyone has laptops. Everyone has that open there. So I told you don't have to spend any more time outside this room also. How it can be done inside this doing the stand-up. Guess what happened? Oh yeah, I got them. Yes, it will work. What did they do after the stand-up? They just closed the laptop, walk out of the room. No one did what I asked them to do. I kept quiet. Then at the end of the sprint, which is a Tuesday in this organization where I work, so obviously we all know, right? At the end of the sprint, it has to be clean. The rally has to be updated. We all check the rally. We all check the health of the sprint. I didn't say anything before I just walked into the daily stand-up that day, and I just opened it. This time I took control. I actually used the LED screen which was there in the big LED screen in the room. I actually powered it up, linked it to my laptop, and I actually showed them their rally dashboard. Guess what happened? I see all these people scrambling, taking their laptops out, and I'm starting to update their task. I just actually, at that point of time, I stopped everyone. I just told them, hey, guys, close your laptop. And I asked them only one question. Today is the end of the sprint. We all know the state where we want to be. I explained to you the value. You said you understood the value. Now, your manager is here in this room. He's seeing the health of the sprint. Is this what is the current health of the sprint? And everyone goes like, no, we have actually completed most of the user stories, we have completed everything. But then I was like, does it reflect on the tool? Just imagine your main manager who's sitting in the US office, he's looking at Rally, he's looking at the progress of the team. What does it say? That actually, believe it or not, that really got their attention. I didn't actually, so this is the whole push versus pull model, right? That instance when I asked them at the end of the sprint, I told them, hey, this is the status, is this where you want it to be? That really told them, yeah, Gautam, now we understand what you said. You know what? We'll update Rally more often moving ahead. Having said that, it's still not the best with that team, but they at least understand the concept now. This is where I bring in the self-realization. I didn't push them. I waited till the last day because that's when it hits them, right? We are all human beings. Even I make mistakes. Even I am, slow in something. But what tends to stick in my mind are those instances where, it's a critical moment and something was not done, and that is what that stays in my mind. That is what we call the stickiness factor. The whole thing with, the Kanban boards as well. We all know the importance of visibility. So one of my techniques is also, having visible medium. So I'll explain probably a bit more in that time. But We all have visible boards. We all use that. But if you don't use that effectively, what is the use? So that's when, they need to understand the real value behind it. If they understand the real value behind it, they will use it, or they will start, incorporating it much better. But if they don't understand the value, from my own experience, they just don't take it. They just don't get it. They don't come on board with you down the journey. They are just not interested because they say there's always a question mark in their head. I don't understand that. Why should I do that? So we as coaches or we as leaders, our first thing is ensure we clear their question mark. We answer their question mark. We make them understand the value. We make them realize themselves what is the real value. That will help us in getting more acceptance quickly. The second most important technique, emphasize on the journey, not the destination. How many of us here are actually told by our leaders what exactly is the vision? What is the actual thing what we want to achieve? Why is it that we are even undertaking this journey? We all are told, okay, once we reach the destination, guys, it's utopia for us, right? We are told, oh, this will, this feature will give us so much, ROI. We'll earn a lot of money. This feature will make the lives of our customers so, it's so easy. It's a great thing. But then, what we normally don't tell them is how the journey would be. We're not preparing them for the journey, isn't it? What are the risks? What is known? What are the different things which we need to interact with? Is it an easy job? Are we prepared for all these, the dependency management? Are we prepared for handling all these known risks? Actually, this is what I'm talking about, known risks. Let alone, once we start undertaking the journey, there'll be more risks, more dependencies which will be uncovered, and it's a different challenge. But the most important thing is for us to set the context right, so that the team is better prepared. Right? Do you all agree with me? Isn't it? That's one of the key challenges also, and one of the misnomers where we all say agile or lean fails. This is one of the key reasons what I myself from my own personal experience have found. Because everyone thinks that, hey, it's a very easy journey. I was told that it's a fantastic and easy feature to implement. It's a great, it's a simple 1 month job. But then as you start working on it, when you uncover so many challenges, so many dependencies, so many risks, then it's like, do you know what? What's the blame for? Immediately, the process is not working. Then immediately the blame shifts to the process. Whereas, did you even plan it properly? Process is all it's telling you to is, hey, how do I deliver the highest value? By minimizing the waste. That is what the process is helping you. It does not, but did it set the stage for you? No. So this is one of the key things, guys, which I found from my own experience. Emphasize on the journey and not the destination. Very important. Third thing, identify champions. How many of you believe in this? Or how many of you have tried this in your own teams? Okay, I can see his hand slowly rising, so that's good. This is essentially for those of you, to put it into perspective, I find this very interesting. I am a coach for about 40 teams. But can I coach all the teams? No. What is the best, optimal thing or number you think I can coach? Or as a coach, I can probably do justice. One team, probably, yeah, that's where I want to be. If someone tells me, hey Gautam, how many coaches or teams do you want to coach? I'll probably say, just start off with one, because that's my 100% commitment. As more and more teams start getting added onto my plate, my commitment level obviously starts decreasing. Right? It's a known fact. So, having said that, again, going back to we as leaders or we as coaches or we, in our own life, we have to handle too many things at a time. What is the most important thing which I found which works? Identify champions. Because we all know, in a team, or any team or any organization, there'll be yes sayers and no naysayers. There's always be these two set of people, right? People who, sorry?
The third who don't say yes.
Who sit on the fence, right? Yeah. So true, this holds good for them also. Always identify those key few people in each of the team who really understand the value and who believe in it and who will help you lead those small teams in your journey. Very important, guys. This is how I think whatever success rate I've got with the teams, this is one of the key factors. These champions really help me a lot. Actually, they do most of the hard work. Isn't it? It's all the trainer concept. You train few people, they in turn train the others, and you get a big team with you, who wants to take the journey with you. So, very important. Identify champions. Okay, fourth one. information.
Questions now or then?
Probably we'll take it later. We have a Q&A session for that. So the fourth one, use information radiators. I don't have to stress more about this. You know, we all know the importance of it. You know, in yesterday's session when we were doing the lean coffee, in our table when we were discussing, one of the participants, we just discussed how this whole, the A3 sheet concept, how it's really helping a particular organization. Do you know what they do? I actually thought it was very interesting. Every team has their A3 sheet, it seems pasted outside the room or outside the cubicle where they are. And it's visible, and it's actually, when I thought about it, it's actually a great thing, right? Because we all do, we all trying to, project it, but then this particular organization, they have their A3 sheets outside the, the alleyway where, each of these teams are located. And I thought it was a great thing, because why? As I'm walking through, I can read all those things, and someone's challenge or someone's how they, basically, overcame the challenge, if I read them, that might, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm facing a similar problem. That might actually work for me. I know actually what might work and what might not work. I don't have to spend time figuring that out. The same thing with the Kanban boards. We all discussed that. I don't have to spend more time again on that. But we all know the importance of these visual mediums, right? So very important, guys. I get a question from many of the teams. Nowadays, many of the teams are using the tools like Rally, Jira, it can be Mingle, anything. They're like, Gautam, we already use tools. Why should we use visible medium? I don't know how many of you get the question. I get this a lot. I still tell them, you know what? It's still better to have a visual medium or in your team room or in your team space. Do you know why? How often do you actually use the tool to notice all these things?
You're wasting the time. They should be working on more stories. Let them write more stories. So the first step is creating this kind of visualization. Because unless people see the problem, they're not going to even think about solving it. Or they may think you're talking about some imaginary problem. So once they see that, hey, what they're really releasing is based on this bottleneck, and this bottleneck is getting worse and worse, then they start thinking, okay, how can we help that bottleneck? And this may be something where we may not have to talk to a line manager, but someone above them. Because a line manager may be just in charge of the development team, and he may not really care about making the system team better or delivering, releasing more. He's caring about how is my team performing. The other people that you need to convince for all these system developers. It's not necessarily you may get buy-in directly from this person. So it is a higher level conversation with them.
Just that. So the CP goes through the system and it goes through the release. Right?
So it's for both. Like I was explaining, in our company previously, we were working in sprint, so it was a time box environment. But then the example which I showed here is a flow kind of.
Okay, but then if you are having a time boxed environment, then there is a commitment at the end of that time box to something to be delivered, right? So you may not meet that commitment, and probably there are patterns where you are consistently being slipping to deliver on that commitment, right? So in such cases, what do you think is
Yeah, so the first thing is like the commitment itself is something which is negotiated by the product owner and the team. At least ideally it should be. So in this case, we negotiated that there is only 50% of the story, and the remaining 50% is going to be focused on creating that framework for system test. So that was the commitment itself was only 50% story, 50% performance.
So I just want to tell you where it's coming from. For example, you have a release which is of say 3 months or 2 months or whatever, and you've been given some set of features which have to be delivered. So I was trying to understand if so you have a flexibility between now and 2 months down the line, and if you're going in a time box where there is all possibility that a lot of the stuff gets spilled over to the next sprint and things like that, right? But ultimately the end goal is to deliver everything. So in such a situation, what kind of flexibility would enable you to probably meet that goal?
Yeah, so the thing which helped us when we set up this is that even if we were doing full-time features work, the amount we are releasing is still the same. So if you want to make some goal over here at how much we are releasing, working more over here on more features is not helping the problem, it's worsening the problem. Right? So that was the first thing. So we say, okay, we can do another 20 features, which is going to create this backlog more. That's it. We're still going to release only one at a time. So then the question is, if we can actually help them and improve the system, then we are releasing 2 features a week. Then our throughput has actually increased, and there's a better chance that we can actually release all our features on time. If we actually make the work more here on more features, there's a lesser chance that we'll actually release all the features on time. It's kind of paradoxical, but that's how it is.
Was the entire vertical slices that you are talking about managed by different people or one person across the entire value stream?
So it depends. At a lower level, different people, right? So there is a different person for this and for this and for this. But if you go higher up in the organization, then it comes down to one person. You are talking to executives or people a little below that. Then they are responsible for getting stuff out of the door. But people lower down are responsible only for the system test or only for the development.
I'm more talking about where you may have a kind of development manager, system test manager, and people who manage the product from the community.
Yeah.
So that's going to challenge you more in terms of you need to get them buying into this idea even before you go to the people who execute the work, right?
Yeah.
So
And I would say, so for this, those are also the wrong people to talk to. Above them, there's a director whom all 3 will report to. And then that director cares about features out of the door. And he's the person to talk to for something like this.
Very flourishing. The foundation and basement is not that strong. And that is where this be agile will be a big question.
And the thing is, like, all those management startup companies, they are aware of the problem what they are trying to build. But they know that, yes, it's only for the time being. After a couple of years, anyway, I would get a very good, decent investment. With that, I can correct this problem. What I'm going to do is I will just scrap everything and rebuild it with the top-notch people. In fact, Flipkart is doing the same.
This one big basket.
Yeah,
Because they
everybody.
resell the-
Because when you are a small company, startup company, you are limited with all kinds of resources. Be it people or finance or the knowledge or whatnot. Everything is very, very limited. Right? With that, you can achieve only this certain amount of quality. But with that, what they are trying to shoot is like, let me go for next level of funding. Right? That's all they are trying to do. Right? The moment they get the next big funding, then at that point they think that okay, this scrap, let's scrap it, we'll get it.
So go from be agile to do agile and then grow.
Maybe I'm not sure about that.
So what you are saying, we were trying to repeat that, as long as you are small and you have an example of a startup and you have a good idea, when you get the first kind of funding, first set of what you call the fund got, then you are trying to be and showcase your product. Example what you used to Flipkart, and then you got the extra funding started coming in when the company is growing, then they are moving away from this to do.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
In another point of view, one of the speakers last year's India Summit spoke about it. See, it's not about the buzzwords, it's also about using the principles. We had named a couple of companies, a couple of new companies like GE and Salesforce.com. Who are actually not using something like a Scrum or something like that, but they don't use the buzzwords, but rather they go by the agile principles.
Okay.
So I think being agile is not just about following Scrum or XP. So rather it boils down to what are those principles of collaboration, trust, and other words that we spoke about. See how exactly you do it on a day-to-day basis.
So let me ask you this question: how many people knows the actual agile transformation in Salesforce? Beyond the fact it is being talked, promoted in all possible conferences, how many people know how it has been driven within the organization?
I think it's more of the thought that I wanted to.
It's a command and control agile transformation proved to be the most successful. It's a one-off case. Very recently, there was a huge talk on a community. It was started by, I don't know his name was EA, but 2007, Peter Pradhan is not Peter, who was heading this, but it was called ADM, Adaptive Development Model, which is completely based on Scrum, but they don't use the word Scrum for some reason. It's just the ADM is nothing but a Scrum, but they put in their own wiki called force.com. And there are a lot of challenges, but it's one fine day. The CEO called Mike Owen and part of you guys, I need 30 trainees by this month, and there's a mail to all managers. 30-day time, take the training, this is the plan, go and do, otherwise we all hired. This is the most bureaucratic, top-down Scrum adaptation, which is fundamentally disagreeing with what Scrum recommends.
I would like to add one more comment here. I think most of the people, we see a lot of resistance to actually do agile and follow the Scrum and XP. They say why. So first we need to help them understand what are the core agile values and principles, and let them experiment for 1 or 2 sprints. Let them realize how it is working for them, so that they will overcome their they have some problems. How is Scrum helping them? They will themselves see the value after 2 or 3 sprints. So let them fail first for 2 or 3 sprints. Then they will get some confidence. Okay, this is something which is more valuable. If, as Jerry said, in some cases, yes, command control may be needed, maybe Salesforce, but give them a chance to actually fail. Let them do something new and let them realize the value in doing that, so that they will understand.
I
So that is what
completely agree on that, because there was a
So
similar
if we
thing.
follow those basic principles and all in waterfall also, they can still be agile. It's nothing like that.
There was a similar thing that we did when we wanted to implement Kanban with one of the teams. We said, let's try this for 2 months. Let us see the feedback on how it is really helping. If it is not helping, we drop it. See, then you get into a methodology where get into a mode where people, if they see the results, you will definitely get the buy-in. So this, but again, there the thing is, you need to have some time to fail.
Yes.
If you want to do it immediately, maybe that kind of an approach will not work. But we had the time, a couple of months where we could try this out. And then when people started seeing the visual feedback, with respect to how they were performing, it is also important to create feedback in the sense that whatever actions you are taking, if you are not showing the impact of that to the team, probably you will never get a buy-in, even if things are happening good. So I think that is also important.
So I think only 3 more leave. Unfortunately, in many conferences people talk about it. So I heard this a lot, command and control, command and control. It is not true that command and control is bad. Please accept the fact. Command and control in a wrong way. People believe command and control means micromanagement. No. The army globally works on command and control behavior. You go to any country army, they just wait for the order. When the order is given, they don't even challenge that. You've seen in English movies, you've seen in anywhere. So somehow we believe that is because people directed command and control means waterfall. Can I get you a Scrum coach who is called as a Scrum project manager? Policing, a coach says policing. And last week my experience of one candidate 20 years experience said I managed 6 Scrum teams, 6 to 8 Scrum teams at a time. So command and control is not bad, but the intention of that and the context, that is a critical factor. So if you really look at in Salesforce, they have been forced to do. But today, this company does Spotify. It's an online song, video gaming this. Even Jim, I think he visited there, you can see this back, the Spotify logo, SP2OTA5. This is now you go to any big conference in Europe, they promote Spotify a lot. The small company, they've done a lot of work. One of the main coach for them is Hendrik member, that guy, right? Kanban, Hendrik. He's from somewhere, Netherlands or somewhere. They started a small shop, they were by definition they'll be agile, okay? But now they're struggling. The quality has got really bad. Because when they scaled it up, they believe just be agile and they just keep scaling it up. They realize everything goes fine and they fail. Now they come up with the measurement criteria for the Scrum team. Are they at the shoe level? Are they at the car level? Are they at the wheel level? You guys know the Shuhari, right? Shuhari level, 3 levels? Yeah. And they are measuring the Scrum team. and based on the measurement output, they are trying to do something so that to make them be agile. So, as you rightly said, when you are small, when you have a handful of people, you try to be is more easy, but when you take it up, you might end up in doing it in a process framework. But the challenge what we see, the other biggest challenge, mindset. How many people believe here that you cannot change or I can change a man or a woman, an adult?
So how can we get the passion of people? So by the way, this concept can be applied anywhere, with your family, with yourself. How can you strategize your journey along with your passion? So that you will enjoy every moment of it. You don't feel like working. So let me introduce default future. Default future is a future which is going to be coming for you if you don't make any drastic change or an unexpected accident happens in your life. It's something which is going on. We know that where we're going to land up in, kind of 6 months from now. If something dramatic won't happen in your life. So we know that if I have a car, a Maruti 800, which won't go beyond 100 km/h, I can't reach so and so place by so and so time. If I don't study, I won't pass. I won't get good exams. I won't get good marks. Probably you may pass. You are all intelligent people, but probably you can't score so much. You know that if you don't do something, or if you don't make some changes in your current behavior, you won't reach that particular goal. And that something happens. Now at the moment, our company, there is appraisal review happening. So there are a lot of people coming out of the cabin of the boss telling, oh man, I thought this time I will get something. He gave me the same feedback he gave me last time. So what did you do about it? No, I was thinking that this time it's going to be better. Okay, but you didn't do anything about it. It's a future. It was written for you. You knew it. It was staring at you, but you kind of, it's okay. It's not visible. So why should I look at it? And you feel worried about it only.
Did you consider the astrology?
Astrology, yeah, probably. That's what we do. That's a good point. This is what Einstein said. We do the same thing again and again and expect different results. Oh, it's not happened this time. Okay, next year. What are we going to do? No, nothing different. Right? Question? No, okay. So now we will try to see how we will apply this small default feature concept in something which is a common problem for us. We'll take a common problem for everybody. So probably fitness, is it okay? How many of you are regularly doing some spotting or some fitness workout? A lot of people. So probably this is not a problem for you, but all other people who don't do it regularly, who takes this kind of decision every new year, 1st of January, that I'm going to do something differently this time. I'm going to walk, I'm going to jog, etc. Right?
But you ask somebody who's doing it regularly, experience about it.
Yeah, we will get into that. So probably each table, I'll give you 3 minutes or 4 minutes. You can probably discuss about what is going to be your default future in 6 months' time. If you don't make any big change in the way you actually carry out your physical fitness stuff. Are we okay?
Absolutely.
So please turn around and then talk to people and understand what they do and where you. So because it's a common problem, I am not working personally with you. So don't get obsessed with the problem. Rather, identify that where you will end up roughly. So 4 minutes. Story. Then what I have to do? Again, I might have to run around the architecture. Again, I need to contact PO and so on. Right? As a Scrum Master, again I need to run around. So what happens in this? It is nothing but typically a waiting time. Right? I am introducing a waiting time over here. If I do backlog grouping in the previous sprint, then what happens? What are the advantages? I don't need to do all these waiting times and all, because anyway, even then, if my product owner doesn't respond today, if he responds tomorrow, it's also well and good for me. Why? Because again, I am 1 week ahead of my sprint planning. Right? So before the sprint planning, I'm taking care of all these dependencies.
after the backlog grooming, so that I reach a state called as a definition of ready. Right? I need not depend on anyone else at the time of sprint planning.
Entry criteria.
Exactly. Which we call as entry criteria as well as exit criteria.
TOD.
Yeah. Then, so waiting time is a non-value added activity. So this is how we reduce waiting time in this case. Right? Now, next one is acceptance criteria driven development. So as I was saying, it's for every story whatever we create, when can I say that the story is done? Right? I am writing some of the steps. Okay, now it has to do these things set up. Right? Within the boundary of that particular story. That's the acceptance criteria. Now, it's inherited from TDD, and then it includes, so typically we write in such a way that it includes all possible scenarios for that particular story. It could be NFS, non-functional requirement. So again, the bottom line over here is that it should not happen that I am creating the story and the story for the entire sprint, I have only one story. Means the story points, the estimation for that story is, let's say 10 story points or 20 story points. No, we break down the story into not more than 2 or 3 story points, but still in that, what are the definition of data? We capture all possible things. Why? Because in order to capture all possible scenarios, and the developer, he codes accordingly. He codes accordingly in order to satisfy those things. It means that we will not introduce any bugs, we will not introduce any defects. It doesn't mean that it's an ideal situation, but still there will be bugs, but this is the way which we want to go.
So how does the tester contribute in this?
Sorry?
So there should be a good contribution from the testing.
Exactly.
Member.
Exactly.
And create
Yes. Right. And so this is what we do over here. So a developer, he takes the story, he understands acceptance criteria, he codes according to that, and then he verifies from his end unit test cases, and then he moves it to verification. So that the Scrum tester or anyone else, he can start doing the testing, and then he goes to the next. Right? And as I was saying it out, it could be anything else. As I was saying it out, it is a time box activity. The backlog grooming is a time box activity. It could be done during the backlog grooming or during the sprint planning also. Now, so it satisfies the requirements of PO, because always we are in touch with PO. We know what PO wants, and the same thing we deliver. And the acceptance criteria, since it captures all possible scenarios, so it tries to minimize the defects. Again, defects is a non-value added activity, and this is how we are eliminating the requirements. Right? Next one is code refactor. Right? So we are all aware that what is the code refactoring. So we are doing the code refactoring, and our goal is to do a continuous code refactoring.
Don't try to conquer the world. Don't say I want to become six-pack. Yeah. You can identify something which is doable, something which is achievable. Because if you set some target which you can't achieve, then probably it's going to be a big problem. You will see that, oh, I can't do that. I just did it because Edwin was asking. That's not the idea. Right? So I'll give you another 4 minutes. Please talk about it and then identify what you can actually do or what you really expect there. Right? Done? Okay, start. It's not about how do you, what do you do about it. It's about what you want there. What do you want there?
No, I want to run a 10K marathon.
Maybe died by the end. So that's most of it. Only thing you
people who does not do anything about Agile, you can say that you do iterative method, you will get faster value. At least you can see the value. You will get faster feedback. You build in little transparency. But it's not ending there. We talk about engineering side also. We talk about TDD, BDD, clean code, different things. So when you go to a team where they do some process, some agile practices, some at times then when they do stand up, they think they are agile. When they do retrospection, they think they are agile. So there are multiple maturity level which different team has. So probably you have to work with the team to identify their default feature in the current burning problem they have. You pick up a topic, like for example, your technical debt. You don't do any TDD practices, you don't do any BDD practices. So you will know that where you're going to land up. Your release testing time is going to increase, and your bandwidth for development is going to decrease. Eventually, it's like if you want to get a small feature and you do the development for 1 week and do testing for another 3 weeks, right? So you need to identify. So you show that future to the team. You just show it. You just draw it and then show it. If you go like this, your code coverage is going to be 20%, and you will have only so much time. You just try to make people visualize what it is. Ask them, do you really want this to happen? Are you really buying it? You feel, okay, this I don't want. So you remove this. You go do the same thing. Probably that's something which team is going to come up with, because we don't want to change. But the moment you make it there and then ask people, as Gautam was talking about, there are champions. I would say not champions, but probably say you can apply the 80-20 principle. There are 20% of people who are going to support you. They are enthusiastic about it, inspired about it. You use them and then kind of come up with what you really require. When people started contributing, people are going to come up and then say that, see, it's like in 4 minutes you could identify what is going to be the future for you. Right? So what we do now is, we'll try to apply some technique from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes. All of you read it? Okay. And in the book which we got from Jim yesterday, I've seen that you are using the quadrant. So personal Kanban also refer to this. How do you get into the second quadrant and be proactive and not doing firefighting all the time?